Good morning, friend. I thought I would just take you along my morning this morning. Not every morning looks like this, but this is kind of a general look at what my typical mornings look like. The first thing I always start with is a cup of coffee, and last night Josh got the pot of coffee made, so all I needed to do was froth a little bit of milk. This is a new routine to me, is frothing my milk, and it makes my coffee just feel a little extra special. I've had this milk frother for years, and I've just started using it really regularly. This is some homemade vanilla bean simple syrup that my friend's husband made when we had the last dinner party. He made a specialty cocktail and he gifted me the vanilla bean simple syrup. So not only am I making this coffee a little extra special this morning with some frothed milk, but I thought I would add just a little bit of vanilla bean syrup in it. Normally my coffee is just coffee and half, but I needed a little extra this morning. I've got some projects I want to get to early this morning before my family gets up. So at this point, nobody in my family is up but me and the dogs, and I always let the dogs out first thing in the morning, and they require a beef liver treat. I freeze dry these for them with the beef liver that I get when I purchase half a cow from a local farmer, and they quite honestly cannot get enough. If I forget this step in the morning, trust me, they will remind me. Now, I just got a big Azure order in a couple days ago, and I want to get some of these items put away. I purchased 2 bags of hard red wheat and hard white wheat. If you are new, my name is Becky, by the way, and I just got a grain mill, and I've been having a lot of fun experimenting, learning how to use it, and learning how to use fresh milled wheat in my cooking. And I only had soft white wheat berries, which are not great for making rustic and bread loaves. They're really good at making things like pancakes and pie crust and things where you want a less gluten content. And so I've been using that, but I want to get better at making crusty loaves and sandwich loaves. And so I needed some hard wheat berries because they have a higher gluten content. So I washed out these 2 buckets the other day. They're nice and dry. And I put each variety in one bucket. So I have hard red wheat in one bucket and hard red wheat in one bucket and a hard white wheat in the other bucket. And this is my favorite way to label these buckets. You all gave me this idea, is to actually cut the label off the bag and just tape that on there. And then, if I put something else in the bucket later, I can just pull the label off and go from there. But it's easy to see. It's a big label, and it just makes for when I'm looking to refill my containers, I don't have to, search around for a tiny little label like I used to do. So I have 2 glass containers here. These are the 2 glass containers that I'm going to keep in my kitchen so that I can just grind my wheat as I need it. And I do have a little label maker, but I ran out of tape. So I do label them halfway, but I need to order more tape so that I can finish labeling them. But I am going to label these with hard red wheat, hard white wheat, and soft white wheat, which I already had a label for that. Now, this wheat I did have in my freezer for 24 hours. Anytime I buy bulk grains, I like to freeze it for 24 hours and then I'll let it thaw for 24 hours just in case if there's anything in the bag, it kills it, and then I feel more comfortable storing it in these buckets with the gamma lids. I can link where I purchased this wheat from. This is organic wheat. I got it from Azure Standard. If you've been here for any length of time, you know I buy most of my grains and bulk goods from Azure Standard, and they specialize in organics, which is something that is important to me. And when you buy in bulk, you can tend to get a better price. So that's why I started buying in bulk, so that I could afford to get better quality products for my family. So now that we've got coffee in us and we have done a project of putting this wheat away, I'm actually going to use this wheat for the first time, and we're going to make some buns. I want to get dinner going in the slow cooker first thing this morning because we have a project downstairs, like I mentioned earlier, that I want to get to. We had grown a ton of drying beans, and it is time to start focusing on processing those beans. So we already got the garden to bed, but now we need to process all of the goodness that has come in that is in the basement. But before I can do that, I wanted to get dinner going because I knew that was going to be a big project. I knew I had a bunch of computer work I needed to get done on this day. So I figured the first thing I was going to do was get dinner taken care of before my family gets up. So that is something that come dinner time, after I get a bunch of computer work done and the project downstairs done, I don't even have to think about dinner. So the first thing I'm doing here is making the buns, and I am using, gosh, I can't remember what recipe I used. I think I used my 1 hour. Yes, I did. I see I have my butter out. I used my 1 hour dinner roll recipe, and I made it exactly as written, except for I added 1.5 cups of fresh milled hard white wheat. And so that was the substitution. So I'm slowly working in whole grains, freshly milled grains into my baking. One thing I have found that you can use 100% fresh milled wheat in my baking is pancakes and waffles. You can do 100% fresh milled and it is delicious. But when it comes to yeasted things, I have found that I'm just starting to like slowly incorporate it until maybe one day I can find recipes and or create my own recipes where I have a really delicious recipe and it is 100% fresh milled wheat. I just washed all those grape jelly jars and I just went to grab a towel, and I'm completely out of towels. So what that means is I need to go ahead and get a load of towels washed. I go through a lot of dish towels. So I'm going to get these in my washing machine. I did rotate the laundry, so there was clean laundry in the washing machine. I put that in the dryer, and I have that dryer going, have my washer going, and I'm going to let this work for me. I was just showing you, I started using these laundry detergent sheets. I buy them on Amazon. They're unscented, and my mom put me onto those, and I've been using them for over 1.5 years now, I think, and I absolutely love them. I can link the ones I use down below if you're interested. My mom started using those, or she actually bought them for my grandma for the first time, because when my grandma was in her late 90s, she had a hard time carrying a whole liquid thing of detergent. And so my mom actually bought those for her. So my grandma started using them, and then my mom started using them, and then I've started using them, and I really like them. So I got my like liquid yeasty mixture going, and I milled my flour, but I wanted my yeast to get all nice and bubbly. So that's why I went and did a couple other projects while I was waiting for that. But now at this point, my yeast was ready, so I'm going to get my bread kneading. So I have my bread kneading for me in the background, and I'm going to get going on the main portion of dinner, which is the beef. So I'm just going to do a slow cooked beef in the slow cooker, like a shredded beef. I was really wanting like a sandwich, and I asked Josh, do you want like a barbecue chicken sandwich, or do you want a slow cooker beef, like shredded beef sandwich? And he said beef. So I am just making this up. I had a little jar of broth that needed to be used up. I have a chuck roast in my slow cooker, and then I am going to just make a sauce to go on this. So I have about 1 cup of broth. I put in probably a couple tablespoons of honey. I'm putting in some basil salt, and then the main flavor component of this is going to be some chipotles in adobo. So we're going to have homemade buns with shredded beef, and after we get our project done downstairs, I'm going to make a coleslaw, and that is going to be dinner tonight. So super, super easy. If I had had some orange juice or some pineapple juice, I was looking at recipes for making a slow cooker beef, and one of them I found was like half chipotle, half pineapple juice, and I thought that that would be really, really good, but I didn't want to run to the store for that, so I just used the little bit of broth that I had on hand, and this turned out really, really good. That's why I added a little bit of honey to it, because I thought the sweetness with the chipotle, honey and chipotle are kind of one of my favorite combinations. I didn't start using chipotles in adobo until, well, I guess it was when Josh and I first got married. And it is probably one of my favorite flavors. It is just so good. And it goes with chicken, beef, pork, anything. And now here, this is another project I figured I would get going on this morning. Well, I'll tell you in just a second. So I'm going to add a bunch of garlic cloves and some onions to the slow cooker. Let that go. I'm not even going to chop the onions or the garlic because I am just using this as flavor. I'm not going to actually shred this in with the beef. I'll remove those once it's done cooking. And I did go through and pick the onions that needed to be used up first. I'm going to cook this roast low and slow all day because I like my beef chuck roast to absolutely fall apart. So that is the roast. I'm going to put the lid on, get this going, and I won't have to think about the main portion of the dinner for quite some time. So I did let the dough rest after I kneaded it for about 5 minutes. I let the dough rest for about 10 minutes and then I turned it back on. When I've been reading about working with fresh milled flour, quite a few recipes recommend to do that, where you actually let the wheat absorb some moisture before you do the big kneading process. So at that point, it had rested for about 5 minutes. Turn it back on, and now it's just going to knead for probably 10 to 15 minutes while I do this other project. So this is the leftover garlic that I had gotten out to plant. And if you saw, I said, oh, I pulled out way more garlic than I need, so I will just process this garlic and we will eat it. Well, I had it in a bucket outside underneath a covered area, and we had a day where it just absolutely torrential downpoured and it was super windy, and the rain, where it normally would not have rained on underneath this covered area, it actually got wet. So all this garlic got rained on the day before. And so I knew that this garlic needed to be processed or it was going to go bad. And it never hurts to have a bunch of garlic prepped. And so I figured, since my family is still sleeping and I've got bread kneading and I'm, puttering around the kitchen getting things done, I'm going to go ahead and take this time to actually process all this garlic, get it peeled. And then I was going back and forth what I wanted to do with this garlic. Did I want to process it in the food processor and chop it up really small and then freeze it in little round discs and use it as fresh garlic? Did I want to freeze dry it? I wasn't sure. So basically the whole time I was peeling that, I was trying to decide what I was going to do. While I was deciding, my bread was kneaded for the length of time it needed to knead, and it actually did a full rise. So it is time to actually shape this dough. This is a beautiful, beautiful dough. It is nice and soft, and these rolls turn out perfect. I'm going to divide them into 9 equal rolls, and then I'm going to shape them. This dough has quite a bit of yeast in it, so it does not take long for this to come together, and I am actually able to get these rolls completely baked and ready to go for dinner before my family wakes up. So now that I have these into like rounds and I let them rested for a little bit to let the gluten relax after shaping them into balls, I'm going to go ahead and flatten them out quite a bit. What I have learned when making buns is to flatten them more than you think into a disc. When I first started making buns, I always ended up with really tall, round balls of dough. And then when I would bake them, they would turn basically into rolls. And so that's not the best for when you turn it into a sandwich, because by the time you cut that in half and fill it, it's really hard to get your mouth around it. And so I flattened these quite a bit, and that seemed to really help so that I had a better shaped bun when all said and done. Now I'm going to cover these. I put a little bit of oil on the top just so they wouldn't dry out, and then I'm going to let these rise for the second time. And now I'm going to go ahead and get the oven preheated so that we can bake those once they are risen properly. Now, another project I wanted to get to this morning was these onions. Now, we had, if you missed it, diced all of these onions. These were the Walla Walla onions that needed to be used up. If they did not get used, they were going to go bad. And so I diced them in my KitchenAid attachment, which made it really, really easy. The longest part of this was actually peeling them, not dicing them. And then I freeze dried them, and they've come out of the freeze dryer, and I'm going to get them into a glass jar. Now, I do think I want to powder quite a bit of these, but I'm not going to powder them until I'm ready to use them. So I have 2 1-gallon jars here. I'm going to get these filled. And because I plan to use these within a year, I don't put them in a Mylar bag. If I was going to use these as like really long-term storage, I would put them in a vacuum seal bag, but I actually want to use these up this year. These came from my garden. and I'm just pushing them down. I don't mind if I crush the onions at all because eventually most of this is going to be turned into onion powder. And so both of these 2 jars, once they are full, are going to go into my downstairs pantry. But I do end up putting 1 little jar upstairs, and I've been using this and it tastes absolutely incredible. This stuff is so, so good. And I'm hoping that I have enough to get through 1 year. If not, I will be probably growing more onions next year. This year, I didn't supplement buying any onions from a local farmer. When I couldn't get onions to grow in my garden, I would go to a local farmer who I used to be a part of their CSA before I had my own garden, community supported agriculture. And once a week, I would get a weekly box from him. And I used to buy bulk produce from him as well when things were in season. So when tomatoes were in season, I would buy a year's worth of tomatoes and can them. And then I would also buy a year's worth of garlic from him and a year's worth of onions. But now that I have my own garden, this is the first year I had a really good onion crop where my onions actually grew bigger than a golf ball. And so I didn't supplement any onions from that local farmer, and I want to see how long these last me. And if they last me a year, then I will grow the same amount of onions next year. If I run out, I will go ahead and grow more onions next year. At this point, I was so happy with how the onions turned out that I decided I'm going to go ahead and freeze dry this garlic. I have made freeze dried garlic powder many times, and it is delicious. And I'm almost out of the freeze-dried garlic powder that I made last year. So I went ahead and decided that's what I was going to do. But I'm not ready to freeze dry anything right now because I only have 2 things of trays in my freezer. So I decided to go ahead and put the lid on that. And then when I have other things that I can freeze dry and I have a whole freeze dryer load, then I will go ahead and run my freeze dryer. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and unload my dishwasher. Typically, I actually start with the dishwasher because when I do cooking projects, obviously I'm going to be making a bunch of dishes, so I like to load things as I go. But on this morning, I did not do it that way, and so I am just going with it, and now I'm going to go ahead and unload the dishwasher. Once it's unloaded, I will get it loaded back up. The beauty of a working kitchen and a working home is that the dishwasher, in my house at least, is always in a state of being emptied or loaded. It is always working for me, and same with my laundry. I always have laundry going. One reason Josh is so excited to get his office out of the laundry room is I almost always have a load of laundry either going in the washing machine or going in the dryer. And I figured I would go ahead and wash these freeze dryer trays by hand because they weren't going to fit in my dishwasher. So I washed those by hand. I took the time to scrub the sink out because that needed to be scrubbed out anyway. And then I'm going to mark on top of these grape jelly jars, grape jelly. And we do a taste test of this grape jelly today. So I did not know that grape jelly was one of Josh's favorite jellies. That's what he grew up having. Until I made this and I asked him, hey, do you even like grape jelly? And he said, yes, it's one of my favorites. And so I'm glad I made it, and we do a taste test on some of the rolls we made. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean up the rest of the kitchen from my morning projects. I put a load of things in a basket that I'm going to take downstairs because I know we're going to work on downstairs projects. And so I get that basket all full with things we are going to bring downstairs. I sweep and mop, I get another cup of coffee so that I can go sit down and work on my computer once I get these buns in the oven. I do need to get these buns in the oven. So that was a busy morning in the kitchen. We got a lot of stuff done. We got our dinner basically done and ready to go. I got the kitchen cleaned up, dishwasher unloaded, dishwasher loaded. I got the buns in the oven baking. We got freeze dryer projects taken care of. We got a bunch of garlic peeled that will be in freeze dryer powder. And now it looks like this. So now I'm going to go do a bunch of computer work. I will come back with you and we will do multiple projects throughout this day. And I've got a stack of clean towels. It has been a busy day already this morning. I went and I sat on my computer and had to work for quite a bit of time. And then now I just got ready for the day. It is now 2:30 and we are going to tackle a big project downstairs that we've been slowly kind of chipping away at. I'm gonna bring this downstairs because we need to put some of these freeze-dried goodies on the pantry shelf downstairs. I've got my pillowcase because you all said that's the best way to shell dried beans. I've got a broom because there's a lot of sweeping to do down there. So I'll meet you down there. Before I go down there, I might as well grab the jelly as well. I think I can fit it into this basket. I actually just asked Josh today, do you like grape jelly? I've never made it, I've never bought it. And he said grape jelly used to be his favorite until I started making strawberry jam. So I'm excited. We're gonna open one of these up together tonight and give it a try. So I'm gonna leave one up here. We will probably have it on one of the hamburger buns we made. And can I just tell you, the house smells incredible between the fresh baked bread and our slow cooker beef, which this is not done. This has 4 hours and 40 minutes to go for at least the time I put on it. It probably only has about 2 hours. It is not fork tender. I want this to be falling apart tender before we put it on our sandwiches tonight. So I'm really glad I got that started this morning, but it smells incredible. You can smell the honey and the butter and the chipotle in that and in that. So let's go downstairs now. If you were with me yesterday, we started this project. We got the onions taken care of, but I have this whole table of tomatoes that needs to be put away. All of these beans need to be shelled. These pumpkins need to be put somewhere. And now all these goodies need to be put somewhere. So what I think I'm gonna do is set this basket here and let's tackle just putting the jelly away first, because that's easy. What helps keep me motivated is if I have a couple easy wins. And we've already had lots of wins today. We are 90% done with dinner and other little wins. We've gotten other little things done today, but this project, every time I come down here, feels a little overwhelming to me. And so a little win where I don't have to make a big decision is always good. So I have a paper bag here, our pillowcase. One thing I have been doing, I don't know if this is a good idea, but every time I come down here, I walk on these shelling beans, and I think what that's doing is starting to break open the pods. At least that's what I'm telling myself, so that when we put it in the pillowcase and start pounding them, they'll come out easier. Okay, so I've got a couple extra jars here. Here are my freeze-dried onions. I'm just gonna stick these over here. This is where I'm starting to build a little collection of freeze-dried things. I need to turn those freeze-dried leeks into powder. I just haven't got around to that yet. I'm really excited about these onions. I think they're gonna be delicious. Go ahead and tackle the marinara sauce and the diced tomatoes. This is the heirloom variety of diced tomatoes I did. This is watermelon or German, I can't remember, and they are incredible. And then these diced tomatoes are just aroma tomato. And those are the only 2 tomato products I canned this year. I had enough tomato products from things I canned last year that after I canned these 2 items, I was able to give away the rest of the tomatoes that my garden produced, which was pretty awesome. Other than the ones, obviously, we ate fresh. I have about 15 green tomatoes still ripening up in my pantry. So I'm just gonna be eating those fresh as they ripen, which is pretty exciting. So that's probably pretty loud, but that's what I do every time I come down here, is I just step on these tomatoes, or black beans. I don't know if that might be a bad idea, because when I go to put them in the pillowcase, it might be hard to pick them up. I don't know. Okay, so you can see I still have a lot of tomato products on this shelf, and that is from last year. That's why I gifted a lot of tomatoes away this year. But I knew I needed marinara sauce because I used all the marinara sauce we made last year and the diced tomatoes we made last year. The tomatoes are all put where they need to go, which feels fantastic. Officially done with all things tomato other than eating those fresh ones. So now what I think I want to do is, I'm not going to shell all of these today because there's no way I'm going to get to all of that today. So I think I might just leave the black beans where they are for now. We'll see how far we get. And I'm going to start tackling these scarlet runner beans. I started this project yesterday, and these are a lot easier to do than the black beans because the beans, these are beans, themselves are a lot larger. So I think I'm going to go ahead and bring these over to the box where I have started them. And I'm just going to get comfortable. You can see that there's just a pile of shells here, and it looks like there's a couple in there that I missed, which is gonna happen. It's bound to happen. I'll probably go through these one more time before I compost them. And I'm just gonna sit and shell beans. You can see this is the pile that I already have, and I've just been shelling them into the box. That one is still not totally dry, but that should be okay. You can see they're pretty easy to open. So let's see how far I can get on these. All right, I got probably half of that box done, but what I was thinking is these are a lot easier to do by hand than these ones, so I could probably do those while I watch TV at night, and they're not gonna make a huge mess like these ones. So let's go ahead and switch focus to the black beans and see if we can do the pillowcase method on these black beans. So what I'm supposed to do is put them in a pillowcase. And there are a lot of black beans already on these boxes because I've been stepping on them. And so I can just pick these boxes up and put the boxes into, or use the boxes as a funnel and funnel it into a bowl, I think. I don't know how many I should put in here. Hey, that's working. Some of them aren't open. Okay, that's working for sure. Okay. So there's a lot in here. So it's not perfect. There are quite a few still in here. So I think what I'll do is I'll do it twice or 3 times, but that's a good start. See all that? So I'm gonna put all these that I did once already back in here and see if I can get some more out. I can't decide which way I like better. I think I almost just like doing it the old-fashioned way. You can see how many black beans are just at the bottom here, which is great. over the last few years that I've grown black beans, the way that I have done this is I have individually shelled each individual black bean. So I've taken one pod and opened each individual one and shelled it that way, and that was not very efficient. So you all told me about this pillowcase method, and it absolutely works. But what I was having a hard time with is I would fill the pillowcase with the black beans. I would either, smash it on the ground or step on it, and I didn't know when I was done. So then I would empty the black beans out of the pillowcase and put those same bean pods back in the pillowcase, smash it, and it took about 3 turns or so to get them completely deshelled. And I felt like it was kind of working blind because I couldn't see what I was doing because of the pillowcase. So what I did is I took that concept and kind of did a hybrid method. So I used the concept of stepping or using pressure to snap open the black beans, and I stepped on this huge pile of black beans, and then I would go through and take my hands and individually pick out the pods that were empty. And then I would take this, compost it, put all the black beans back in a big pile, step on them, and this worked really, really well. I mean, it took a long time. Total, this probably took me an hour and a half to get all of this done, but in the past, it would have taken me multiple hours to get this many done. So here is a bowl of shells that need to just go into a compost bucket. And it was about at this point of the day when my family wanted to join me downstairs and actually help. So Josh went through and he individually opened each one of the scarlet runner beans. So I was working on the black beans and he was working on the scarlet runner beans. And he tried every method to try to do this and not having to manually open them up. But these are about 4 times the size of the black bean pods. And we stepped on them. We used the pillowcase and Josh was smashing them, but to use the pillowcase and smash them or to step on them, you had to put so much force to actually pop open these pods that what was happening was the beans themselves were actually breaking, and so they weren't staying whole, and we don't want a bunch of broken beans. So we decided to just eliminate all of those and go back to the drawing board or back to just manually opening each one of those. So that's what he was working on while I was continuing to break open these black beans. So you can see my pile is getting smaller and smaller, and the black beans underneath my pile of shells is getting bigger and bigger. So every so often I would stomp on them and then pull out the empty shells. I would kind of go through individually, and sometimes there would be like 1 or 2 beans in the pod, so I just kind of pull those out. I would stomp on them again and then again repeat the process, and I did that until there were no more, well, I shouldn't say no more because there still are, I haven't cleaned them yet, shells. Now I do not clean these black beans. These black beans are completely dry. They dried on the vines. I harvested them dry. Then I let them dry even more down here before I did this process, but obviously they are dirty because I've been stepping on them. These were brand new slippers that I just got. So I had brand new slippers, but they're on the floor. There's dirt, there's debris. So I'm not going to wash these until I go to use them. And then when I go to use them, I will wash them very, very well, whether that's using them from dry and cooking with them from dry or canning them. If I'm going to can these, I will wash these really, really well as well. So you can see I'm picking up all of these beautiful black beans, and there is still some leaf debris and some pieces of the shell. That all I will clean up, and I can show you that when I get to it. But on this day, the biggest priority here was just to remove the shells from the black beans. And this method worked beautifully for me, where I just stomped on them, removed the outer shell, stomped on them, removed the outer shell, stomped on them until I had basically one big pile of black beans. And I'm going to get the black beans and obviously all this debris into a bowl. And I'm really, really excited that this method worked really well for me. Now, Josh has other plans for how we're going to do the rest of them, and I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. We got one set of black beans done. I mostly did this black beans, and then Josh was very, very helpful, and he got the scarlet runner beans done. Now this is a lot. And then we still have, Josh is just cleaning up for me, which I greatly appreciate. All of these are the pinto. These are pinto. Well, they're not technically pinto. They're the same here as over here, which our dragon's tongue beans, which are like a pinto bean. And then we still have all of these black beans that are the bush bean variety. The ones I just did are the pole bean variety. Josh, you want to pick that up for me and tell me how much you, well, I have the scale right there. Actually, we could weigh it. We'll just get a really light or a rough estimate on here.
You have a scale, like a food scale, don't you?
Yeah, but I think that's more than 11 pounds and mine only goes to 11 pounds.
This here is 22.5 pounds.
I don't think it's that much, but you can certainly.
I don't think this is.
Well, you got to get on it here. Let me hold it.
I've got to turn it on first. I think
we're going to do the subtract method. No, it's not. It just lit up. There we go.
Well, no, you're going to see my weight.
Oh, wow.
200 pounds exactly.
Wait, that's amazing. So here.
200.0?
So now you know how much Josh weighs. Okay, so it's 10.
You're only 10 pounds.
10.6 pounds. So we got 10 pounds from one trellis worth, 1.5 trellises worth of trellis. So that's pretty good.
For black beans?
Yeah, but that's the pole bean variety.
And also that includes the bowl.
Yes. So we'll say we probably got 10 pounds because there's also a lot of dirt and debris in there that we're going to... 6. So what I'm going to do is clean up a little bit, and then Josh has decided he is going to purchase a thresher. I can definitely guarantee myself a new toy if I put Josh on something where there is a tool that can be bought to make it a lot more efficient. So because we still have so much more to do, we are going to get that's what it's called, right? A thresher? Thrasher? Thresher.
With an E.
Thresher. Okay. So I'm going to clean up a little bit more, but I'm not going to do the dragon tongue beans and the other black beans until we get that, and I'll show you how that works. Because every year this is quite a project, and though the stepping on method worked really well. And Josh, did you like the pillowcase method, or were you breaking too many of them?
No, it was hard to get a good balance.
He said it didn't work. It worked really well for the black beans, but I just found the best rhythm for myself was to stomp on them. So let's go ahead, Josh, would you be willing to help me put these big zucchinis right here and the pumpkins here? And then I'm gonna go ahead and sweep up a little bit more.
Are these gonna just rot?
No, those are going to the chickens. These, can you tell how thick these skins are? So I think these should last for a little while. I can move the coffee. Perfect. I have a big mess I need to sweep up. Josh already got most of the sweeping over here done. Is it satisfying to play with? We are making a lot of progress. Is it done? No, but as of this week, it is probably 50% done. And I'm excited to see what the machine is gonna do with these beans. Josh has been threatening to buy one for 4 years now. And last year he didn't help with processing them at all. And we grew a lot more this year, and I plan to grow even more next year. So if it works, then it will be a good investment. Now here we've got the tomatoes up, really excited about that. So let's go pull dinner together because I think it's like 4:30 or 4:45. So we are hungry. So I do have some dishes to bring up, and I'm gonna go ahead and wash some of these bowls. I am so glad I did dinner prep this morning because there's no way I would wanna start making dinner from scratch right now. It was a busy day this morning in the kitchen, but then I got a lot of computer work done today as well, and we got a lot of cleanup downstairs done. I think I'm gonna do myself a favor. I could hand wash these, but there is space in the dishwasher. I'm gonna throw them in the dishwasher. And then there will be just enough space for our dinner dishes tonight, and then I will turn the dishwasher on after dinner. So to finish dinner, it's gonna be really easy. I'm gonna wash my hands real quick though. And then Josh and I are gonna do a taste test of this jelly. It was kind of a dirty project to do that. So those beans will definitely be washed really, really well before we process them and can them up. What I'm gonna do first, because we are gonna make a coleslaw to go on top of our sandwiches, is I'm gonna get this beef out of the slow cooker. It is now fall apart tender, but it's too hot for me to handle right now. It smells so good. I love chipotle. It's probably, chipotle and honey together is probably one of my favorite flavor combinations. We don't like to bite into any big pieces of fat, so I always take the time, anytime I slow cook a chuck roast, I let it cool and then I pull the fat off of it. I'm gonna strain this liquid in my fat separator. One of these buns has already been eaten and thoroughly enjoyed, so that worked really, really well. Next time I might add a little bit more of the fresh ground flour. I would like to get to 100% fresh ground flour, but I also want it to be a good texture and delicious. So at least I know adding 1.5 cups of hard white wheat berries gets you a good texture. And then everything else I kept the same. So I'm just straining all of the onion and the garlic through this fat separator. I need to taste the broth, make sure it's not too spicy. Chipotles are one of those funny things. Sometimes they're really hot, and sometimes they're not hot at all. Well, usually they have some heat to it, but I always like to balance it with the honey. I'll taste the broth once it sits for a minute, and while that's cooling and all that, I'm gonna turn the slow cooker off. We can go ahead and make our coleslaw. This is just gonna be a very, very simple coleslaw. It's gonna come together even faster because I have a bag of coleslaw mix, so I don't have to shred cabbage or carrots. Let's start with that. So I have mayo, basil salt, black pepper, apple cider vinegar. I like it a little tart to balance the fatty richness of the beef. About a tablespoon of sugar. Mix that together, and that's it. I'm gonna give it a taste test, see if I need to adjust, if I need to add more vinegar, more pepper, or more sugar, but I'm gonna let it sit for just a minute to let the salt and sugar dissolve. And while that's sitting, I'm gonna prep my buns. I'm gonna keep all of my seasonings out because I might need them. And for my buns, I'm gonna take 2 of them. I want to broil them and get them a little toasty. So I'm gonna turn my broiler on high. So I like that these are really flat. I was kind of going for that so that when I load it up with the beef, it's not gonna be a crazy huge bite. That's why I flatten them out quite a bit. In the past, I've made really squat and round ones, and they're delicious, but they're hard to get your mouth around. Those look like they're cooked perfectly. I do not feel like cutting cheese. The only sliced cheese I have in my house right now is mozzarella, and I think that will be good because it'll add a nice meltiness to it. This is a really soft mozzarella. It's delicious from Trader Joe's, but they're kind of hard to separate. 1 piece on each. I think I'm gonna put it on the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and just pepper it just a little bit because pepper is delicious. I just tasted my coleslaw dressing and it is delicious. It doesn't need anything. So I'm gonna open up my coleslaw bag. This is one of my favorite convenience items to buy at the grocery store. I don't buy pre-chopped vegetables that often, but when I do, it's typically a coleslaw mix or the frozen, or not frozen, but the cauliflower or broccoli from Costco. But this is my favorite convenience pre-chopped veggie item from the store, because I really don't like shredding coleslaw or cabbage. And that looked like to be the perfect amount of dressing. So I'm gonna pop this in the fridge and let this kind of chill and marry together for just a few minutes while we finish our dinner. I don't want to put that bread in the broiler until I know I can keep an eye on it. So what I think I'm going to do next is go ahead and shred this beef. I did ask Josh if he wanted beef tonight or chicken for sandwiches, and he chose beef, which is going to be delicious. And this is going to be more than enough for us to have dinner tonight, plus a couple lunches, or maybe dinner tomorrow. I haven't figured out what I'm doing tomorrow yet for dinner. And I will give this fatty bits to the chickens, and they will love it, especially going into winter. I'm gonna put this back on high to warm, and I'm gonna pop this in the oven, and we're gonna give that a minute to broil. So Josh just went to let the dogs out, so he's gonna be back in just a second, but I'm gonna go ahead and open this jar of jelly and get it on some bread so we can taste it. Had a good seal, and it looks like it gelled up nicely. We've got a nice jelly. So instead of just tasting that with a spoon, I'm gonna go ahead and just cut one of these open. And I'm gonna put a little bit on some bread. Oh, it smells good. I don't think my mom bought grape jelly growing up very often. She usually bought strawberry or Marionberry. This might be the first time I'm really trying grape jelly for the first time. So that's ready for him as soon as he's, oh gosh. Oh, perfect timing. Okay, so we did not burn that. And then we do like to put our coleslaw on the top of our sandwiches. So sometimes this can get a little messy, but it is oh so delicious. And the bun is perfectly toasted and warmed through. Now, Josh, would you rather taste the grape jelly first or?
Yes.
Okay, that was easy.
Oh no.
Oh,
That's a whole situation there.
I made a mess.
Oops. Wow.
All right.
This looks great.
I was telling them, I don't think I've ever eaten grape jelly before. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh yeah, that's good. It's grape jelly. This is all I used to really have growing up.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. My mom always bought strawberry or raspberry, or Marionberry. I think that's why I like strawberry the best. This is really good.
Very good. Tastes exactly like you expect it to taste.
Tastes like communion to me.
It's a little community. Yep.
It's good though. Mm-hmm. Would you want me to like make this and be in the rotation?
It's good to have variety.
Okay. Would you still say that strawberry is your favorite?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so I'm gonna cut my sandwich in half just because it's gonna be easier to eat. I normally am not someone who cuts my sandwiches in half, but man, does that look good. I love a good sandwich.
The bun has great crunch. But it's soft and tender.
I really want to take another bite. That is so good. So do you like this bun? This has some fresh milled wheat in it.
It's really good. It's a
really
great
good.
bun. Mm-hmm. Not too spicy.
Not too spicy?
Nope.
Okay, good. This is so good. I'm so excited to sit down and eat this. Is it a good ratio of meat to coleslaw?
Nice.
All right, so we're gonna go sit down and eat. That is fantastic. I will make those buns again. I think those are some of actually the best buns I've ever made.
Yeah, they're great.
They're tender, they're not chewy,
No,
which
they're great.
is kind of what you want in a bun, I think.
It's got nice crisp from the broiling,
Awesome.
I think.
He's going in for another bite.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold off.
So friend, thank you so much for hanging out with me this morning as we got a lot done this morning. And then we started a big project downstairs. I'm excited to see how this, did you find a machine?
I'm still looking through them. And
Okay.
I guess it's not a,
Thresher?
it might not be a thresher.
Oh,
It might be a sheller.
sheller. Oh, that makes sense.
But I think that might be a difference between fresh peas and beans versus dried peas and beans.
Okay.
So we'll see. Might get a bunch of them. You might get a bunch and just see what happens.
So he was researching that when I was finishing dinner. So I'm really excited about it. So stay tuned and see the machine we end up getting, and you'll see how it works. And if you enjoyed this, I'll pop some more videos here. You can go enjoy between now and the next upload. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.